wonderful life. Where else could you be where you're going to meet so many interesting people all over the world? You can go to any city in any country, and within a few minutes, you can be talking to interesting artists, collectors, curators, intellectuals. I mean, it's a passport to excitement, and I would never trade that for another life.
Yeah, but in 1960s, it was flourishing time for Andy Warhol, Liechtenstein, all this Castelli group,
Yes.
and you have decided to go to Europe and buy prints of European artists to start with.
Yes.
It was just pragmatic step, or it just was your conceptual notion?
No, it was live or die.
I understand.
And so I needed to have something that someone heard of. I wasn't quite ready, and I had no reputation to help a young artist or even an older artist that no one ever heard of. I didn't have a gallery yet, and I was still practicing out of an old law office. So I needed something that people heard of in order to be able to make a living.
Probably my question will sound a little bit naive, but our viewers, they're not very knowledgeable about the original prints. Most of them confused. They think it's a reproduction or, you know, the piece of art which doesn't have any actual value. And it's very good example that you started to buying original prints of Chagall, Miro, because it's definitely has a value. So today you affiliated with the prints again. Is it a pattern, or it's just your special interest to Eddie Warhol, or it's a pragmatical, beneficial things? What it is?
It's probably a lot of everything of what you just said, but particularly I love prints. I mean, I adore paintings and all kinds of new ways of working, but prints has such a wonderful history, and Warhol invented new ways to make them that are so direct and very current, and the images that come out of the silk screens that he made are very current. They speak to how the world looks today. It doesn't look like Rembrandt etchings because the world is not a Rembrandt etching. So if you're going to deal with contemporary life from the way that he wanted to, very directly, this was a direct way, photographs through print. So many of these works that are in this exhibition are simply the same screens, the same silk screen that he put on canvas, but he chose to put them on paper. That's the only difference that makes this a print than a painting.
Yeah, I understand that, but can you tell a couple of words to our viewers what's the difference between estate print and the print which is signed by artists in value?
Well, in value, there shouldn't be much difference in value. Picasso, for example, his Volar suite prints, many of them almost always were unsigned in the beginning, and you could bring it to him, and for $50 he would sign them. But the Museum of Modern Art has a complete set that I believe is totally unsigned. It's worth the same amount, except it doesn't have his signature. It's still real. These prints have stamps from Andy, or have estate stamps, numbers, and so on. They're completely authentic, and they're certainly made by Andy in his lifetime. And it's not a reproduction of anything. So whether it has a signature or not is a commercial thing, and in the beginning people were very nervous, but that's no longer true. We don't have any trouble selling an authentic Warhol.
Yeah, because it's a Warhol. If we are talking about some unknown artist, definitely it must be all restriction apply with certificate of authenticity, which gives all disclosure, etc., etc. Because it's a Warhol, you are not worried too much. Isn't that true?
No, with Warhol you should be more worried, because there are people who are making unauthentic or fake Warhols. And so having a real Warhol is harder than to have the real work of a young artist that no one's going to bother to make fakes of. But you are correct, you would be correct, that to have a signature of an artist is what people would look for and have some comfort with, but it isn't really necessary. Some artists refuse to do it, and they stamp it sort of just as a rebellion. So you do want to make sure whatever it is you're buying is authentic.
There is some theory which I probably agree with, that by the end of the 20th century the customers or collectors buying not only the artists but from the galleries. The reputation of the galleries at stake, and it costs everything.
Well, sometimes that's true, but I do find when I'm working with younger artists that even though the gallery is well known, everyone in New York still comes and says, well, is this any good? You know, we have so many critics. Every person is a critic. It's like going to a movie, and when you come out, everyone has their own opinion. That's the same for art. So the only thing I tell a new artist that we work with is that we definitely will have an audience, but what they'll think, I have no idea.
I would like to ask you about some particular prints in your walls. I know that some of the artists from Russia, like Komer Milamid, they were struggling to get some attention from any gallery. All of a sudden, you pick them up, and it made them until today. And is there any other Russian artists you have been working with, aside from Komer Milamid?
Yes, there are several that we had shows with, and we hope to continue more. The Peppers work together as a husband and wife. That's artists that we'd love to see again and to work with. Right now, they're always changing studios, finding a place to work. We've lost a little bit of contact, which we would like to reestablish, and the Martinchiks are another. Again, a husband and wife.
That sounds like Ukrainian names.
Yes, it's truly just, again, accidental, who you meet and what art you like that you work with. Brodsky and Utkin, who now work separately, are artists that we continue to work with. It somehow seems that I have found pairs of people who work together coming from the Soviet Union, and it's not unusual here, but it's certainly the exception. And in the Soviet Union, I found many like that.
No, I'm not going to say that every new artist is supposed to go to Ronald Feldman Gallery, because tomorrow we'll get thousands of them. I'm just joking. But definitely it's very promising for the young emerging artists that somebody get this standpoint that you are ready to review any unknown artist.
Yes, well, we're definitely. I think you lose your edge. This is very, very competitive, as you can see in New York. There must be 200, 300 galleries that are having shows all at the same time of mostly new work. And so if you can't gain attention for your artist, then you can't do your job very well, and the artist becomes disappointed. And so do you. You have to pay your bills. So you do want to select art that you really believe in, because it's a very long battle. To finish a career of an artist, to begin and to end somewhere that's successful, is very hard. And I never make a promise to anyone that they'll be famous or anything. All I will say is that they'll have an audience. And I will be there, hopefully, the next time. I try anyway, to survive.
Anyway, it sounds very promising. You got very interesting statement in your interview in a very famous book, Art-Dealer. Pointing out that some of the very powerful people in the art business, they are virtually ignorant. They don't know too much about the art. There is some different conception that it's certain very powerful circles in art business, which they call some of them call mafia, who just promote one artist and will not promote another artist. What do you think about it?
I live with it. I just live with it. There's nothing to do. I think that it's very important to be independent in your thinking at all times. And that doesn't mean to become arrogant and not to read or to have knowledge of what people are saying about the work that you've committed to. But at the same time, you have to be so dedicated to it that you're never going to be weak, that if you still believe in the art, nothing's going to turn your mind against it, and you're going to go ahead to the next show. Because artists make good work, they make bad work, and who's to say which is the best show of an artist's work? Sometimes we find out 20, 50 years later, wow, that was so great, we didn't see it at the time. So I'm always trying to be ahead of even contemporary criticism, if I can. And then I'm always counting on the artist being a rebel, and so that he or she is always going to be changing their stripes, and maybe even not the same artist tomorrow morning, but that the excitement and that the enterprise that they've entered into is so big, so important, so exciting, it's worth the trip, even if the trip goes nowhere.
Ivan Karp says once that when I take the artist on the board of the gallery, I don't have strong commitments. If, let's say, that the work doesn't sound for me like professional, I will never show in my gallery. So you have to remember, he said that when I make an exhibition, it's a holiday for my heart, not for artists. My taste, it's a major criteria. How about you?
Same. This is my education, my learning, my commitment, my money, my hard work. So of course I'm very dedicated to the choice that I've made, but I don't make it lightly, and I don't make it because of a commercial bottom line mentality. I do it because I think this is an exciting adventure and that this is something worthwhile doing. I have a better eye for history than possibly I have for the moment.
Could you tell us, our viewers, a couple of words about the Andy Warhol pieces we got in the wall of your gallery?
Yes, these are pieces that were found when Andy died. We weren't even sure that he ever made such things. And these things surfaced after his death. He had kept them all these years. And they are a range of personalities and of images that he's made his whole life. So these sometimes are new images that we never saw, or he went back to older images and reinterpreted them and made these works. So the range of what you see goes across a very long period of his career as far as images are concerned. And on this one wall, we can see Judy Garland as a mature artist, a mature performer, very glamorous, and we can see her as a very young performer before they had a chance to make her very glamorous. You can see that transition very clearly. And of course, Andy was always interested in fame, and fame came in so many different ways for him. Here is someone that was famous, still famous, Truman Capote, an incredibly important writer in the United States, that Andy did a portrait of. And both Andy and Truman Capote were underground people, even though they may be doing portraits of famous people or books about very important subjects matters. Underneath it, they're dangerous. And so Truman Capote, at the end of his life, wrote a book about all these wonderful, wealthy people who took him in to their society. And later he made a book that told all the blemishes of these people, and they got very angry at him.
Yeah, I know this story.
And he became very angry at them for not understanding all these years that he was, damn it, an artist. And they thought he was just some type of society person, like a fop, like the Scarlet Pimpernel, who just came and made nice with you and was very friendly. But underneath it, he was recording what you were doing. So of course, Andy loved Truman Capote and understood exactly what Truman was doing, because it was just what Andy was doing. Here we have a picture of Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter, and you can see the change of look between how you looked then for Judy Garland and how a contemporary performer would look now. And next to her is the Shah of Iran, who for a moment was a very famous person and will probably be in the history books, but had this incredibly important position, and then all of a sudden, nothing. And what's missing here is that we have a portrait of his wife, Faradiba, which we didn't have room to put on the wall, but I thought it would have been important if we could have put it on, because you would see how he thought of fame. So she also had a position of fame and was a celebrity, and he made her look very beautiful, but all of a sudden nothing. Husband loses power, you lose your throne. How fleeting that is, and how fleeting talent can be sometimes. What's long-lasting? So the values of a society, as to a ruler, to a writer, to a performer, are things that always intrigued Andy, including being a visual artist. How could he have a long-lasting effect after he was gone? And by making a record of the time was how. But sometimes it's a pretty record, because that's the way we want to see it. And if you look further underneath it, not so pretty. So the black and whites sort of give you a better view, unvarnished, of what he was doing. And then when you see the disasters, the pictures of skulls and the electric chair, you get another sense of society. All of this for Andy were famous images of our time, and he left them behind as portraits, not only of him, but of us. And the idea of using silk screens and photographs, and so simple like this, is a way to get to the very bottom of who Warhol was and what his legacy is about.
Did you know him in his real life?
Oh yes, oh yes. We had a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun to be with, Andy. He was a good traveling companion. He was very funny, and he would always say things that would just come from out of the blue. And you would stand there and say, gee, that's so stupid, something Andy just said. And 5 minutes later you'd say, God, he's right. That's the way he was all the time. And he was just coming from just some very strange place. And he, when I first met him, the first thing we bonded over was television. We were both born during the beginning of television, the television era in the United States, and watched the same programs and understood that as a medium, what power that had. And he made it really, his life's work was from the understanding of what television could do and movies could do to produce celebrities, and how we worship celebrities and why, and how celebrities were the same as his work, was surface in the press, and underneath it, real people. And you don't really see the real people of what this is made up of. So he used both of those as subject matters for his work always. And it began with television from the very beginning. And he once came to me with an idea to do a restaurant. It was around the corner from a gallery I had uptown at the time. It was a big empty store on the corner. A supermarket had gone out of business. And he said, "Can you raise me the money to do a restaurant?" And I said, "Well, what would it be?" He said, "An Andy mat, like an automat, where you went in and put money in the slots. So you'd go in and you would put money in these slots, open this door, and out would come your meal, which would be a TV dinner, a frozen TV dinner, and just like you could make it home. And then you would go, you would take this tray, and you would sit down at a table for one person. You couldn't eat with anyone else. You would sit and you would watch a television, a little television screen, just as if you were home. But if you didn't want to be home, you could now be in the Andy mat, watching television with other people separately in your booth." So I said, "But Andy, who's going to come to this restaurant to eat alone a frozen dinner at a high price?" And he said, "Well, that's what everyone does every night anyway. Why won't they come out and do it in public?" But needless to say, we couldn't raise the money. So we never opened an Andy mat. And I said to him, "Why don't you do it with your money?" And he said, "No, I'd rather have an investor."
It means that the art dealer could be friend with the artist. There is no conflict of interest.
No, not to be a friend, but it's hard because you are really, in a certain way, the eyes and ears of the world, the filter to the world. And sometimes you have to bring very bad news. Sometimes you can bring very good news. And so it's a very difficult position to be in. And also there's a competition a little bit between artists for the attention of the art dealer and so on. It's a little bit parental. I try to avoid that if best I can, but it just comes with the job a little bit. And it's hard to get out of it. So that at the end of an exhibition, not from Andy today, but near the end of an exhibition of an artist's work, they'll call as you begin to install the next exhibition. The artist who had the last exhibition wants to make sure you still remember and love them. And of course you do, but they have to hear it. And so it's a difficult position to be in. But of course, over the years you build friendships and loyalties, and that includes fighting over different things too, so that the relationship is very real. And it breathes and it allows room for growth. And I try not to get in the way of my artists' lives. That's their lives. I don't want to live those lives. They should live it themselves.
What can you say, like, to person who is dreaming to become art dealer? Can you tell him something optimistic?
Yes, yes, it's a great life. It's not the road to fame and fortune. You won't make $1 million right away, maybe never. But if you are committed to it, you have to do it. It's the same as an artist. I've learned many lessons from artists, and the most important lesson is nothing will stop them from getting up in the morning and making their art. Nothing, a bad review, a death in the family, something, but at some moment they have to make art. For example, Chuck Close, who recently, a few years ago, was taken ill and was stricken down. By the time he left the hospital, he was making art. Nothing could stop him. And so that's the dedication you need as a dealer. You have the same commitment, you're unafraid, you're taking risk, and you know that there may not be an economic reward for a very long time, if ever. But you're not doing it for that reason. It's that integrity. If you have that, even if you're not sure, you have to test yourself. You try to have it. If you think you can do that, then you can do it.
But some people are afraid. They think, I don't have a taste, I don't have a knowledge. And as we discussed before, the Ivan Karp and you says, oh, I got my taste, it's a major criteria, but I can object that Leo Castelli missed Andy Warhol for 2 years because he didn't like, or he thought he looks like Roy Lichtenstein. At least I read the interview. Sure. So it becomes not very obvious, a little bit hazy, what the taste is and what the criteria is.
If you may be shy, but if you don't have a strong ego someplace, you'll never be able to be an art dealer. You've got to be able to persevere at all times. That's really important. And the worst fear for a great art dealer is, I missed it. I saw it and I didn't like it, I was wrong. That's very hard to admit to yourself. And the other thing is to realize that you're playing on a big stage, but you're still just a player. No matter what an art dealer does, always an art dealer is a footnote in history. It's never a big thing. Leo is great, and he's still alive, and he's still active and everything, but eventually, some point in history, Leo is important, but still a footnote somewhere. It's just not a major thing as important as an artist or someone with creativity in another way. So I always look at it as a privilege to be able to live this life. That's what it is, just lucky.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very, very good pleasure to talking to you today.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. No, I'm a PhD in different field.
Yeah. What
In
is
construction.
it? In construction.
In construction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In construction. Oh.
Like, which has a name great arт-дилers.
Ah. Well, hopefully. Well, thank you for saying that too.
Oh yeah, I think it's a.